So Tycoon has had a lot of balance changes which were previously done. However, what if I told you guys that they were still not done for the recent updates, and there is once again another one which I'd really like to show you guys in today's video. And today's video is fully gonna be based on the ground vehicles, because first of all, they have actually buffed the health of a lot of ground vehicles. Firstly, the Humvee has received a buff to its health. I'm not sure of the previous values of health that it used to actually have, however, it was definitely buffed. The JLTV has also received a huge buff, because now if you max it out, it can almost have up to 2000 health, which is actually quite a lot. The VCAC Mephisto has also received a buff to its health. Now it's nearing the 2000 meter, just not quite there yet. With this, we have also received a change to the Gurkha MPV, I believe that's how you call it. Almost 2000 health, which is just insanity to me. That is a really high buff. Now with this, the Type 65V is now almost at 2000 health. The Katyusha has also received a buff to its health, and I believe with this we also had the Guardian and the M35 truck. So overall, I think these are some good changes. Keep in mind that these health values might seem like they're extremely high, but the damage multiplication system is not very nice to ground vehicles, and they take a lot more damage than most other things in the game. So one of the first vehicles which actually received a change in this update is the JOTV, and this is the one that we all have actually been waiting for, and I'm so glad they finally buffed it. So the first thing which was actually changed to it is that they updated the damage of its mounted turret javelin damage buff, and they reduced the javelin reload time. So firstly, if you take a look at its mounted turret against planes, as you guys can see, it has an insane fire rate, but with this it does also do a very high damage per hit, being able to destroy both the Su-25 and the Super Hind in basically around 2 seconds, which is pretty insane to me. Keep in mind I'm using the Su-25 because it has the same health as the F-35B. But anyway, if we take a look at its damage against the ground vehicles, it does not fall off at all. It will be able to destroy something like an MGS extremely quickly, and the same results can also be seen against the TO-55. So essentially we have ourselves a vehicle which is extremely agile, it has a lot of health, and it has an insane firepower, and it only costs you 7 parts. So already with its mounted turret, I can see these buffs being put in place with how strong this thing truly is. Now if we take a look at its machine gun, it's rather not that good. I can definitely see some types of damage buffs that were done to it, but it's not going to be able to be that good against planes and helicopters. It'll be able to just get a good damage out pretty fast, and the same results can also be seen against something like an MGS and the TO-55. So essentially, once again, this is just a bonus damage and nothing else. However, the Javelin, out of all, it's probably the most interesting, because it will be able to do some decent damage to the ground vehicles and tanks, but it's not going to be anything really outstanding. The Abrams X Javelin on its own probably does around the damage of 2 of these Javelins in one. So I'd say that's some fair balancing right here. But overall, the JOTV is once again actually back in the meta, which is exactly what we asked for. Now the next change, which actually came to be a little bit of a surprise in terms of its overall damage, but the M35 gun truck has also been heavily buffed, because now it will be able to once again shred planes in basically a few seconds, and the same results can also be seen against helicopters. So this thing is definitely an amazing anti-air, as it should be, to be honest. This is a gun truck that was aimed to be good at air, as I'm pretty sure. However, with this, it's also not too bad against ground vehicles and tanks, because the fact is that you can shoot for such a long amount of time that it basically never runs out of ammo. So if you do manage to just get some good shots on the enemy consistently, then you'll probably be able to win a lot of fights using this thing. However, keep in mind that the DPS against these vehicles is not that high. It's rather just the fact that they can shoot for such a long time, but either way, I definitely see this as an amazing buff. However, the next buff which was made, which also came to be a really big surprise, is going to be the VCAC Mephisto. Not only do they also buff its health, however, now its guided missiles will be able to one-shot most of air vehicles and basically every single helicopter in the game, which previously they were not able to really do that. However, with this, it will also be able to get the MGS and the TO-55 extremely low after shooting it with all of its 4 missiles, which I think is also really good. This was supposed to be an anti-tank after all. However, I do have an issue with this vehicle. I do believe it's a little bit OP with the spawn protection, but also the fact that you literally don't even have to pay any parts to spawn this thing in. I definitely think they should add a part cost to it, because this thing can be really abused extremely easily. Now actually moving into the HIMARS, which was also a really good buff that was made in this update. So firstly taking a look at its damage against air vehicles, and unfortunately enough it will not be able to one-tap them. Personally I do believe it will be nice if it did, since once again hitting a trick shot of an artillery is extremely difficult in this game and you don't even get rewarded for it, so I definitely think this thing should one-tap the air vehicles. Now if we take a look at its damage against something like an MGS, it will be able to get it down extremely low, if not kill most of the ground vehicles, since keep in mind that this is the highest, most durable ground vehicle in the game, so most of the other ground vehicles will probably die in around 6 of the rockets. However, if we take a look at its tank damage, this thing will be able to destroy the TL-55 in around 5 to 6 rockets, which is actually really good. Now if we take a look at the last ground vehicle which was changed in this update, that was the laser APC, and its cannon is actually extremely good now and it can shoot for a very long time, unlike what it was able to do before, so it'll obviously be able to shred the air vehicles extremely quickly at a good pace, and the same results can also definitely be seen against things like the TL-55 but also the Striker MGS. I'd say it's a lot worse against the ground vehicles, however against tanks this thing is primarily going to be really good at taking down. Now if we take a look at the rocket damage against air vehicles, it will be extremely good. Most of the air vehicles will probably be getting one-shotted by this thing, however some other ones with a very high health will probably not. But if we take a look at its overall damage against the ground vehicles, it will definitely be able to shred a lot of their health, if not almost all of it, and its damage against tanks is going to be a lot worse. It'll be able to get the TL-55 to around 50%, but I do believe that it's still extremely good since we do have the MG, which is just a lot better at killing tanks. So I think in general this vehicle is really well balanced and it's just a lot more powerful compared to what it used to be. However, we are still missing its smoke, which I do believe it deserves, just like it has it in real life. But yeah, for the time being, those were all the balance changes for ground vehicles that were made in this update. There is still so much more to cover, so these videos are going to be flowing over this week. Anyway, I'll see you guys in the next video. Have a great rest of your day, and thank you so much to all my channel members.